Hello, my name is Anthony Wall. Since I was a kid, there were people attaching everyone to fake and change communications with everyone around them, including the difference of between kids that are and adults older than me and below me. And they pretend their motivations for why they're doing things. Increasingly a Christopher Cullen has roles with the judicial branch offices and corrections offices with a whole bunch of different countries, work criminal enterprises and private ones involving people from my grammar school. I never had a class with a Christopher Cullen. I only know him recorded, confess, demonstrate, confirm this with the people through the people tied him, which are people increasingly on my street involved with a New Britain Superior Court with some untimely deaths and murders, and people with federal criminals with grammar school kids, and before and after that with the names after at and next to their campuses. These are also their roles, our country, and with people with like our representatives with Korea, the North Korea and South Korea, because it's been through a time. And in other words, they're refusing to identify themselves legitimately into branch. On a mass scale, they have been stacking predicate acts with facts collusions with all natures of crime scenes. Sometimes it's the victims the worst, sometimes it's them. And the difference of that is but the difference of that is also exploited, and it's increasingly their collusion slash S. The same way originally and still overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists had collusions with the three branches of government and intelligence tied to them, as our founders communicated. But our founders' communications have been replaced. And in other words, this wouldn't even be debatable if you guys followed mandated law. But the names of the people of the sciences are reliant upon expert lean, where they pretend to believe. In other words, all clearer than day. James Madison's plan and the founders behind him, we had declassified. They had to counter extort at key locations to make people break the laws to an extent. Those crazy laws that were collusions with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists. And laws that had slavery entrenched in northern colonies and southern colonies. Our founders communicated for us clearly to understand that and how there was a human fact, human nature breaching method entrenched that they had no means to uproot, and it was sensing collusions with itself, therefore collusions against everyone's against themselves and against everyone else to an extent syntactically, otherwise that body was sensed, including that body was a majority of people, including it was everyone, and that was adapted to by the breaching method. That's how it motivated roles with things like slavery. All other apparent truths were our truths used for lies. You see, we don't have honest debate of subjects. Increasingly, the Connecticut corrections offices and the judicial branch offices have roles with people who went out of their way, like made fake instances of knowing me, and like a Joshua Julian, I don't know him at all. He's one of the ones on the Facebook page of a campus I went to. I never saw him on a campus in my life, a Joshua Julian. He's involved with people with the Harvard Hospital's campus and with campuses intercity, including children campuses and fire campuses, and people involved with the FBI and agencies. A whole bunch of people with the name Violet involved, and Demoro involved with people named Demoro. I never saw him with a Demoro. These are people that recorded, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They're from other areas. They sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. My neighbor is involved with them and with their educators with them. I never had a class with Mark Violet. And he was even my grade, I don't think. I don't know. And he has a Justice Levinskas is also one of the ones who used to hang out with on other grade, used to hang out with people that the police have involved, like named Cololo. They didn't put the whole name. And Bob Chase brought up the name Phil Cololo. He's with Whiting Forensics. They're refusing to identify themselves legitimately into branch. and they've been stacking fake things in databases into branch. They put fake conversations with me with Weathersfield police when I was a kid and now as an adult. There are some Mendez police and their families involved with the FBI at Fox Connecticut News and with Weathersfield Police Department involved with fake conversations with me, fake ties to little kids through time with Weathersfield Police Department, retired police chiefs, also involved with differences racketeering, worse than war crimes. They have rules with sexual and medical offenders of kids with New Britain Superior Court in the hallway of New Britain Superior Court with Eric Mendez, involved with his older brother and his roles next to Fox Connecticut News. Fox Connecticut News has a bunch of stories involved and people involved with Park Street, with Alina's Cafe, also involved with people with a Daryl Sullivan and other people with a police officer with the name Sullivan who doesn't give the whole name, involved with wire crimes, with people involved further with sexual and medical offenders of the kids and leaders of the kids and kids of the leaders of the kids and the differences of the abuses of them with the other kids. Now, these are people increasingly, Mendez police and their educators told lies about me to my family members since I was a kid. And then they had to hide life progressions. Increasingly, Ray Clough gave me a toy helicopter, and the timing of it was recorded him planting evidences with New Britain Superior Court's family members, and retired and standing, and other Hartford courts and their intimate ties involved with intercities, planting evidences next to campuses, and people know that they have. West Hartford has roles with a Joe DeMore and a Ray Clough, a bunch of ways for them, and the body dumping spot of a serial killer and names next to it, involved with people with them intercities, like with foreign and domestic military, and people all along Route 3, and conjunctions to it like Elm Street. Ray Clough has roles with retired police chiefs, like a police chief Cintron there, years before Mazzucato Bakery was there. Mazzucato Bakery is also involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, the Weathersfield Police, falsified transcripts, wire crime acts and methods they have, and mail crime acts and methods. So we need to get them on paper. And I can't write you a mail because they'll get put fake things and lie in background, pretend there was communications that never were. They have been stacking them in the databases each year of my life with the people with connections to it. Joe DeMoro will tell you this. He's one of the ones with a Mr. Abruzzi that Central Connecticut State University, a whole bunch of men and women tied to the business office, have roles with Elena Davenport and others I don't know their names of, with a Heather Hansen, also with the library at Central Connecticut State University, involved also with the neighbors of, and as co-defendants of former director of the FBI, and is the daughter of one of them, has roles with a Heather Hansen and with others with the business department and people with foreign and domestic military. There's a Parker English who is involved with Logic, who is also delusions raw, criminally foreign influence delusions raw, tactically delusions raw, as someone who fought for the United States military, who is being used to screen his roles with the Saudi attackers too, even if he doesn't know about that. If that wasn't him on Walker Hill, there's a woman and a lady who pulled up next to me, and there's a guy who lifted his fist. And a whole bunch of people with the DeMoro family and his neighbors also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Like that's now D&D. It used to be, I forgot the name it used to be. But in other words, all along Walker Hill are people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. And with that place has something to do with people with the DeMoro family and his neighbors, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and their rules with DeMoro's Market that used to be next to Harvard Hospital and where it is now, involved with wire crime acts and methods, and people all along Route 3 that have been planting fake ties, fake natures of ties to people and fake evidences. And with a Mr. Neville, who was my 8th grade teacher. He's involved with putting fake things in databases with people I don't even know. I don't know. I only saw one of them real quick on the campus. He came into my class, of Mr. Neville's class. What's his name? a Matt Olson or an Eric Olson. I think it was an Eric Olson. I don't even know them. That was the only time I ever saw them on the campus in my life. And I never saw them around school. A bunch of people involved who have been planting evidences along Route 175 from old Weathersfield locations. The founding locations know. They had roles with their conversations with their teachers that were involved with and as value as organized crime and identity theft, fraud, slanders. Eric Jensen said he had conversations with people with the teachers and people on Morgan Circle. There's also a Kerr family there. There's also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by a bunch of police and people involved with child abusers involved with them and with their roles with workers and with their roles with the owners of the buildings at the corner of South Steen and Town Line Drive and at the corner of Main Street in Old Weathersfield and Church Street. Also with houses on the corner of that street are involved with wire crimes with multiple police departments with the Colo house and the Smith house, involved with a bunch of people at Hartford Hospital, fake conversations with me, including their patients and doctors and their family members at the same time, so they could put chaos, so everyone could keep putting more fake things in databases to hide what came first. These are also people on off the state corrections offices and the state judicial branch offices, involved also with educators and classmates of a Joe DeMoro and a Ray Clo involved with them. Also with confessions of people tied to the name Dave and people with the military associated with next to the state judicial branch office and his name Dave. And Bob, I never saw him. He walked by me one time. I can't make a fake exception. And then the only time I ever saw him off campus, it was real quick. And he was trying to make fake ties to me, fake nature ties to me. I had not a word of conversation to him. He handed me a guitar, then I gave back. And then he told me to get back to him. I gave back to him. He's increasingly involved with like they were planting evidences with Joe DeMoro and Ray Colo consciously, with people with the state judicial branch offices and corrections with the state corrections office in that case. But this is tied, and their roles with predicate acts with facts and databases. These are also courts forging and switching names and putting fake things in databases. These are judges and prosecutors and their family members simultaneously with medical doctors' family members involved on my street with predicate acts with the same house/S from other areas, people tied to them. A Rick Ciampaglione was influenced to put lies, fake ties, fake natures of ties behind my back to a whole bunch of people I don't even know, with a Ray Claw and a Tim O'Brien, who also did the same thing, intercities, intra-cities, inter-campuses, even ones they didn't go to, and next to them with the ones involved. So it's important for them to get on paper one name and sequence. They also changed and faked conversations between me and everyone around me and my family. And then, in other words, and they'll tell you in other words, and they'll tell you that those truths are really used for lies, because these are also people involved with World Trade Center predicate acts, all sides of criminal and civil cases. They also changed and faked conversations with me, with the people in the court that day, including my family. Part of it, the other part, in other words, right in the World Trade Center, in the court next to the World Trade Center towers, right before the attack. It was before a panel of judges, where the court itself has rules with sequence shifts and with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases involved with predicate acts against me, with the news at the same time. Connecticut's Channel 3 News attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others, and about the World Trade Center attack, and while they were forcing a principal child abuser, and while they were forcing collusions with untimely death rolls that brought that up on off campuses and other predicate acts and murders that were involved in intercities with the same names, and confessions tied to that. And the confessions are manifest, not just with where and how they have religious nutbags involved, but also where and how they, and I say that, not, they brought it up. I minded my business. See, people mind their business. They're putting fake things in transcripts, fake records, The fire departments have a methods. They're recording, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have a they're refusing to identify themselves legitimately with a Inspector Mike and with others involved with Russians, people with the name Peruta with them, planting evidences on all sides of my house and putting records, fake things when they go back and put their records. Now, when something happens, they have to use that to cover up what actually happened. They have rules with smoke, crimes with smoke coming through the chimney too before that. Now I notice them involved with this too. They're making confessions too, like the Inspector Mike, but they won't give his whole name. So they're confessing that they won't identify themselves legitimately, and they're fishing for motivations to pretend. Why? In other words, and they're using truths for lies. Like when I had to raise my voice in the past, they recorded, used that to cover up what I caught them doing, which is roles with all kinds of natures of organized crimes, not legitimately with the standing police forms. In other words, a Delafair family will tell you when you ask them correctly. In other words, I never even saw them on campuses. I don't even have anything to do with them. They have roles with a whole bunch of people that know my names. I don't know their names. They're involved with fire department campuses and police forms that have pictures of taken to make fake exceptions of people and make it look like they know each other. As people that's one thing I noticed between the people tied to the people who are putting fake things in databases, including with Facebook. Facebook has the Britain Superior Court involved with rape threats with them and with FBI Director Robert Luskin and family members of his co-defendants and their neighbors and themselves involved with predicate acts with the news locations and with campuses and with all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, slanders, and federal evidences crimes all along Route 175 from the founding locations, as ones involved also next to Central Connecticut State University and other campuses. Kevin Harris is recorded involved with his family, with judges and prosecutors, and foreign and domestic medical families, with a Rick Faglione, putting fake ties, fake natures of ties to me. Never had a word of conversation with him in my life. They're planting evidences and slanders of me with people I don't even know their names at Quinnipiac University years ago, as people further involved with the principal upskirt Nature's campus and his Facebook page and Facebook itself and the Britain Superior Court's Facebook page and Wethersfield Police Facebook page. They have a Joshua Schumacher also involved with some black KKK Confederate flag team people tied to him. And the Wethersfield Police, his mother, has roles with them, with religious nutbags, with sexual medical offenders of kids, people planting fake ties, fake natures ties, and fake motivations for it. People with Vernon, Connecticut, increasingly involved with interstates, with their treatments of criminal enterprises and terrorists grouped wrong, demonstrably, to keep where it's also relative to where and how nature has us shown we are an individual species body of individual bodies, and all group differences are being generated by that which is generating the other species bodies as well, to show us it is not us nor them, but it is all things anyway, and to show us an extent of his body, that which is hyper invisible but still discernible. Conjunction to all parts of English grammar, which are all about the invisible but still discernible. It is why and how we can only appreciate subjects individually grouped and simultaneous to an extent. But that extent comes with an extent that identity of simultaneous nature that is the same one. That is not our species body, is not the other species bodies, but is all things anyway. And it shows us this. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. Nature is teaching us about difference. Nature shows us too. A breaching method reassigned, but nature communicates. And it forced, it tricks, hurts, and persuades self-value rules doing that. And or sensing for the breaching method and forcing other things, other ourselves, blame for people doing that. Like, because that's what's recorded, where the question is shown to us by nature itself. Why and how? Could a breaching method have assigned something so evil, and people still have stayed? Could they be stayed motivated to blame other things, others, ourselves, including our founders, for it? That's why no one, you guys need to be honest about the extortion of George Washington and the counter extortion regarding James Madison's plan to force people to break the laws involved with their own torture, extortion, and slavery. But they had to leave it entrenched. But they had to fight. They had to force the North and the South to fight with each other. Neither of them, still, none of the states could make speech for the Constitution on a bridge proper yet, because of you guys A through Z who had sickly distinctly, and the differences of your campuses sickly distinctly telling other than communicating other for our founders than they communicated, which they communicated they didn't have free speech because there was a breaching method entrenched. We are supposed to understand that breaching method. We're supposed to observe how it had been forcing A through Z to fight with A through Z, including Native Americans against Native Americans since before they were Native Americans, because they were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to blame on other things other than themselves, what the breaching method was doing, which is separating us from what nature had already revealed before the scientists became criminally foreign influenced. Tactically delusions wrought from off their locations, but that's hyper additional collusions. Oh yeah, but it's not our fault. But in other words, it's your fault if you guys leaving it out. How you go back and forth with, oh, who's this bro? You don't know who that person is in American history? Oh, you don't know what year that war was? Oh. In other words, the databases are still criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought, and right through world wars, people with psychiatry had roles with that. Increasingly, there's a Brendan Leahy, and I believe that's his father's name too. I never had a word of conversation with Brendan Leahy, and the father, I only had one sarcastic word with him. They're increasingly involved with sexual and medical offenders on my street from Hartford Hospital, and their roles putting predicate acts with facts in each of the campuses I went to, as their roles with names there. And now these are people with judges and prosecutors that have been speaking fake things in databases to cover up their roles with them doing that before that. Former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk, and his family members, his co-defendants, their family members, their neighbors, are also increasingly involved with judges and prosecutors with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people who have time collusions with conversations with educators behind my back, and their roles with the names next to the parks and next to the campuses, and next to next to the state judicial branch offices, and next to the state corrections offices. Increasingly, people tied to the name Demaro, O'Brien, and Fienza, roles with predicate acts with a Dillon family, and with judges and prosecutors, the state corrections offices and judicial branch offices there. The judicial and also Wethersfield Pizza have wire crime acts and methods with the Wethersfield Police, Wethersfield Pizza House, also, and they are next to the state judicial branch offices too. Stephen Stocko, I only have one word of conversation not about it. He's confessing, demonstrating, recording, confirming. He has educators and intelligence associated at Central Connecticut State University involved with sexual circles with him, and with neighbors of Maria Vizino, apparently per people tied to them, involved with, in other words, identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me with their neighbors too through time. Further with the Board of Education too, with sexual and medical offenders of kids, intercities, and all sides of Central Connecticut State University. Also with the people at UConn involved that next to Hartford Hospital with them, and with the people with this, with Mark Violet and Mike Violet and their mother, involved with, and a whole bunch of people with the Zano family too, with Juice Syntax and Confessional. I only know him with Juice Syntax because these are also people with their differences and other people's differences. They sequence ship with that, and they pretend they have them weaponized too. Their groups and themselves differences sequence shift. I didn't respond to the sexual comments and the Jewish themed about it, about my neighbor by a Miss Riley, who's also apparently Jewish, involved with a Mike Devane is increasingly too. He was yelling out sexual things about his girlfriend and Alison Mulcahy and about her being Jewish, and she rolls with Hangdog Lane and Turot Highway, and where it runs into Turot Highway. Increasingly, people tied to body dumping spots and federal evidence is crimes to judges and prosecutors over criminal enterprises, private ones, and people putting fake things in databases and acting tied to it. A Rich Dombrowski will tell you he was influenced to call me to put fake ties, fake natures of ties to me to cover up what I caught them doing with the people involved with the Cub Scouts and his neighbors involved with identity. I never saw him on the inside of a campus in my life. Or Richard Dombrowski, South Civiolo. I only remember seeing him a couple times in my class. In fourth grade. In other words, I never had a personal conversation with him. One time, they tried to make a fake exception after I graduated real fast with Eric Jensen at the South Civiolo's house, and he was influenced to say things about pot, or say he found pot in a speaker by the people to make fake evidence of fake ties, fake nature ties to me with the Dillon family and other houses near there involved with body dumping spots. And their educators putting fake things in databases. Further, there's the daughter of a Mr. Murphy from the same campus of Principal Michael Bean, the principal upskirt nature. Before he was caught with that, I caught them doing worse with the kids. In other words, and with sexual and medical offenders at the same time, they're putting their family members are roles too. They have the daughter of one of the ones, the men and women that will in a Leahy family, also on Facebook, involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and proven sexual and medical offenders of kids, and people with the Facebook page of Wethersfield Police involved with that, and with New Britain Superior Court, with a whole bunch of people tied to them, involved on my street from other areas, planting evidences with the same house/S, involved with retired police chiefs, and they're not legitimately with their roles with the intelligence and the names all along Route 3 and its conjunctions to that, like the state judicial branch officers, and their roles with Elm Streets through time, increasingly. So Modern Pastry and Mazzucato Bakery, recording, confessing, demonstrating, confirming. If they heard this, they're not allowing a response with because the police are torturing them not to say anything. Because it's recorded, they have roles with a police chief, Cintron, who has been switching and forging names and planting evidences with people intercities and on and off campuses with his family members and with their intimate ties through time. And it has something to do with the wrong roads, all along roads and routes, like Route 3 and Route 175 for the founding locations. In other words, this is against everyone, though, sickly, distinctly. You guys are on the mass scale. Anyone and everyone with the right to lie for any reason to do it, they use that right to lie where they don't have the right to lie. And they use truth for lies on a mass scale. And to screen, they put lies between truths. Increasingly, it's people involved with Vermont, too, with this Mr. Neville and his role, the roles with the programs with the kids and things like that. These at the same time are ones involved with the elderly homes and the veteran homes. Have you seen how the veteran homes look just like those buildings in the background of rap videos, like in New York City? The suburbs were designed clearer than day by extortion, torture, and slavery method to be a landscape theater and to self-value roles. The only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and to counter the negatives is to self-value roles with criminal and citizen's natures of means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. This is why and how we need to have it mandated that you guys aren't supposed to fake and change what people say. and have fake conversations about the World Trade Center attack. Increasingly, that's why it's implied that they have roles with nuclear or things like that, where they would have to, and their roles with a whole bunch of different countries in the news, how they are shared next to the campuses. They are lying about that, and they're directed to lie about that for a whole bunch of reasons. But even that, they're leaving out the exceptions. No, this would have been brought up. Increasingly, the Britain Superior Court and the Britain's Central Connecticut State University increasingly has people from intercities, interstates, and internationally involved with predicate acts with facts. We on my street from Wethersfield. That's a phenomenon they recorded, and that they're confessing too. So their confessions can be observed once they get on paper, because they can't deny this legitimately on paper. They have a Officer Poison involved with digital crimes with them, also with the officer with the Dillon family, and with more sexual medical offenders of kids, with judges involved with a Judge Killian at Hartford Hospital, involved with some more digital proven forced child abusers, leaders of kids. He's one of the ones involved with drugs and medicines crimes with Hartford Hospital. Supposed to be against those things. They're putting fake things in their databases there. They have people involved with parks and recreation too, and the Wethersfield Community Center increasingly, and names on all sides of it are involved with these people named DeMoro and Cololo, with predicate acts with retired police chiefs and with intermilitary involved with predicate acts on my street and behind my back with their in campuses I went to, putting predicate acts into databases. Now this is also why they have how they have people standing there who will say nothing. Then they're going to pretend things from backgrounds, try to make fake exceptions. People with the name Luigi Guerrera and tied to them, I don't even know all their names. They're pretending passions and emotions, and because they're needing to sequence shifts and keep people from getting response on paper. In other words, get them on paper. I've been asking you for a long time. They're using wire. They attached me to fake police conversations with the police at the police station when I was a kid. That weren't at all. And as an adult, I wasn't at all. And in other words, let's get them off the fake conversation ties to me with these Mendez brothers too, involved with the New Britain Superior Court with sexual and medical offenders of kids since I was a kid, with leaders of the kids and kids involved with identity theft or frauds against ones they don't even know. Let's get them on paper. Name and sequence. Mr. Pruzzi is also with Central Connecticut State University, adults and kids. Recorded some looked just like a little girl to me, said she was an adult. In other words, even with all kinds of exception things are manifest, because these are people that are only capable of putting and valuing roles with fake exceptions in exception nature. Otherwise, in other words, because how reason works. So you guys are fishing what people say and taking and wanting to debate about it and ask questions about it dishonestly. You need to fix the fake conversation with people. It's against the law to do that, and just stop not giving me help. There's going to be violence too. I told you there are more people that may threat. Repeated the name of one of the girls they put a fake conversation with me about, the Leahy family, as one of my family members. Increasingly, a Leahy family has foreign and domestic intelligence next to the Hartford Hospital and at the Hartford Hospital, with people on my street involved with them with predicate acts like this Rick Sanpaglione involved with the wire crimes of the O'Brien and Cololo, and people with the name D. Simone, also with a name for telephone. Let's get them on paper, one name in sequence. What are they doing with the Newington locations being leaked? What's the name of the guy who they said was a roommate of a Ray Collo? What's his name? Involved with the Newington locations too, and the spots next to Fox Connecticut News. Get me off the fake conversation with Channel 3 News, Fox Connecticut News. This is the intelligence next to your location too, involved with various natures of federal criminals, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and again, sick things. No one wants to speak about it, so get the heck on paper. In other words, it's violence. You guys bring up this stuff too. Then you bring violence. You guys are about sequence shifting. You guys are involved with the violence. More people with a Phil recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also with some interracial and intercultural and interreligious spotting up acts on my street down their names repeating the name. Then he's swerving his bike just like the guy that was doing that. We're going to get this Phil Claw on paper with the Bob Chase. Confessions brought his name up too. He was supposed to show me the falsified police report. There's a falsified police report that Phil Claw has with a principal upskirt nature and more sexual and medical offenders of kids, and ones from other areas on my street involved with untimely death rolls with them. Identity theft, fraud, slanders, a bunch of judges, prosecutors, and their family members, a bunch of fakes with this Phil Claw and his cousins, people tied to them, per themselves, and per the courts themselves. You're going to get them on paper one name in sequence. You're going to listen to YouTuber Anthony Walker. That's mandated.